Kids, let's just calm down, Snow White insisted. Your grandfather was right. Without a crew of workers, it would take Rumpelstiltskin decades to tunnel to the barrier. Your grandmother and the sheriff will stop him and the piper tonight. See, that's where I'm confused, Sabrina said. What does the Pied Piper have to offer in all this? If Rumpelstiltskin can blow a hole in the barrier, then what does he need with a guy whose claim to fame is leading a bunch of rats out of town? Maybe he's using the rats to chew through the rocks, Puck said. That's stupid, Sabrina snapped. You're stupid, he shouted back. Maybe he's not using rats, Snow White said uncomfortably. What else could he use? Asked Sabrina. You don't know how the Pied Piper's story ended, do you? The girls shook their heads. Apparently, their father's no fairy tales rule was coming back to haunt them again. He drowned the rats and became a hero, right? Daphne said. Well, he did drown the rats, but he didn't do it to be a hero. He did it for a paycheck. In his day, he used to travel from town to town using his pipes to clean up messes. He drove the spiders out of Paris, the monkeys out of Bombay, and snakes out of Prague. But he did it for money. When he showed up in Hamelin, the townspeople were desperate. They were completely overrun with vermin. What's vermin mean? Daphne asked. Rats and mice, Sabrina explained. Rats were everywhere, Miss White continued. They spread a lot of disease and people were getting sick. Everything the town had tried hadn't worked. So the piper agreed to handle their problem, and in no time he was leading the rats right into the ocean where they drowned. But that wasn't the end of the town's problems. When the piper came back, he wanted payment, but the town refused to pay. They had used him and he was furious. What happened? Sabrina said, already sensing the story's unhappy ending. He gave them 24 hours to come up with the money, and when the time was up, they just laughed at him. So he blew into his bagpipes and the town's children congregated around him. The piper marched out of town with the children following behind him, just as the rats had. Their families tried to stop them, but reports said the kids were in a trance and kept on following the music. The families never saw them again. So of course it makes a lot of sense to hire him to be principal of an elementary school, Sabrina said angrily. Rats or brats, Puck said, before Snow White could explain. What's the difference? Suddenly, the truth dawned on Sabrina. He's providing the workforce, she cried. What are you talking about? Daphne said. The piper has been using his magic to force the students to work at night. You've seen the kids in my classes. They're exhausted. It's because they've been working all night. We have to warn Granny. We can't do that, Snow White said. But Miss White, we have to, Daphne cried, rushing to the closet and returning with her deputy's hat tied to her head. The sheriff and Mr. Candace are with her, the teacher replied. They'll figure this out before anyone gets hurt. What if they don't? Puck asked. Sabrina was surprised. The boy usually acted as if he didn't care. What if they don't find out? We saw those tunnels. They go on and on. If Rumpelstiltskin blows a hole in the barrier, those walls will collapse on everyone inside. Now Sabrina was stunned. I thought you were a villain. If you come along, you're going to have to be a hero. As long as I'm ruining someone's day, I'm in, Puck said. Snow White looked from child to child and then reached for her car keys. Get your coats on, she said. If I think it's too dangerous, we turn right around. Soon they were rushing out the front door. They were in such a hurry, Snow White didn't see Maid Charming coming up the path, and the two ran right into each other. Snow, Charming said, surprised. Billy, the teacher whispered. They stood, holding hands in the cold night air. Sabrina rolled her eyes. We're not going to go through this again, are we? She cried. We've got to get going. What's the rush? Charming asked. Rumpelstiltskin and the Pied Piper have been tunneling under the school for months and are looking for the weak spot in Baba Yaga's barrier so they can try to crack a hole in it and escape. And Granny, the sheriff, Mr. Candle, and the window are there now trying to stop them. But they don't know that Rumpelstiltskin is like a living battery, and he has the power to create the hole. But if he does, he'll collapse the tunnel and everyone inside will die, Daphne said, breathing heavily. Charming stood still with wide eyes. What was that again? He asked. We're going to save the day, Miss White said. We'll take my car, the mayor declared, leading the group to his stretched limousine. Mr. Seven got off the driver's seat, but Charming waved him off. Seven, he commanded, we're in a hurry. The little man crawled back into his seat, closed the door, and started the engine. Once everyone was inside, he pulled into the road and sped off like a NASCAR driver, leaving a tire stain on the pavement behind him. Billy, what are you doing here? Snow White said as she strapped on her seatbelt. I have something for the girls, the mayor explained as he reached into his pocket and took out a small box of matches. Charming handed the box to Sabrina and smiled proudly. We made a deal. Here's my end of the bargain. Thanks, Sabrina said. I'll save these for the next time I need to build a campfire. Chad, those aren't ordinary matches, Charming groaned. They're the little match girls' matches. I just handed you something people in this town will kill for. Snow White gasped. You told me they had been destroyed. I was trying to protect you, Charming said. If anyone knew these still existed, your life might have been in danger. Great, so you give them to us? Sabrina groaned. Doesn't everyone hate us enough? Grim, no one is going to know you have them because you are going to use them right away, the mayor replied. Sabrina peeked into the matchbox. 2 small wooden matches lay inside. What did they do? I thought you two were supposed to be experts on fables and fairy tales. The Little Match Girl is one of Hans Christian Andersen's most famous accounts. You've been in our house. There are like 1 million books in the bathroom alone. We don't know everything yet, Sabrina said. The Little Match Girl sold matches in the street for money, Snow White explained. One day, she came across a box of them and set out to make a little money to help feed her family. But it was horribly cold outside, and she was forced to light one. The flame became a magical portal, leading to a room filled with food and a roaring fireplace. The girl realized she had wished she were in such a place before striking the match. People have been looking for those matches for 100 years. They'll take a person anywhere they want to go, Sabrina. All you have to do is wish. Like Dorothy's slippers? Daphne asked. She and her sister used them to pop up all over town, but they had lost one of them while running from a giant. These are more powerful than the slippers, Charming said. They could take an ever after the other side of the barrier, or they could take you to your parents. Sabrina stared down into the box, and a tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't deserve such an amazing gift, and she knew it. For weeks, she had looked at Ever After as a suspect in her parents' kidnapping. She had turned everyone against her and practically broken her grandmother's heart. And yet, here was the most obnoxious, untrustworthy of the bunch, handing her the key to finding her parents. Why would you do this for us? Sabrina asked. We made a deal, Charming said, glancing at the pretty teacher. You could have used these to escape, said Snow White. There was something that kept me here, Charming said, staring into her eyes. The beautiful teacher leaned over and kissed the mayor. Billy, Charming, make me a promise. What kind of promise? Charming asked, somewhat breathless. When all this is said and done, Snow White said, take me to dinner, as long as we can leave your 7 chaperones at home, Charming said with a grin. Mr. Seven grumbled in the front seat. Oh, it's so romantic, Daphne blubbered. I think I'm going to cry. I think I'm going to lose my lunch, Puck groaned. Suddenly, the car came to a screeching halt. Seven, why have we stopped? Charming demanded. The road is blocked, sir, the little man said, pointing out the window to where dozens of children were walking in the middle of the street. They are all wearing pajamas and had glassy looks in their eyes. There are too many of them to maneuver around. The piper is controlling them, Sabrina said as they passed some of the kids. Mr. Seven honked the horn, but had no effect on the children. We'll have to walk from here, Sabrina said. They got out of the car, leaving Mr. Seven to guard it. Puck's wings sprang from his back and he lifted off the ground. What I wouldn't do for a carton of eggs, he said. I'm going to go get some and play dive bomber on these zombies. Before he could fly away, Snow White grabbed his leg and yanked him back down to the ground. We should stay together, she said. The boy looked extremely disappointed, but his wings disappeared nonetheless. The group weaved in and out of the crowd until they were standing on the front lawn of the elementary school. As they approached the main entrance, Sabrina noticed that the front doors the giant mouse had plowed through were still lying on the ground. A steady stream of vacant-faced children was shuffling through the doorway, ushered in by a hulking girl with a pink ribbon in her hair. When Sabrina studied her closely, she realized that it was Natalie. Natalie, you need to get as far away from here as you can, she warned, and try to get some of these kids to follow you. This place is going to get dangerous. Oh, it's going to get dangerous, all right, the big girl replied as her skin began to bubble and inflate. Hair shot from every pore, and two long fangs sprang upward from her bottom jaw. Her eyes turned a milky yellow, and a long hound dog crept out of her mouth and licked her lips. Claws sprouted from her fingertips as she lashed out at the group, knocking Puck, Charming, Daphne, and Sabrina to the ground with one great swipe. Snow White just managed to step aside, avoiding Natalie's attack. Egad, I didn't think you'd get any uglier, Puck said as he crawled back onto his feet. Snow, get behind me, Charming shouted as he leaped to his feet. I'll handle this brute. Billy, the teacher cried, this is the 21st century. Women don't need the white knight routine anymore. I can fight my own battles. She planted her feet and raised her hands. When Natalie charged at her, the teacher set a hard jab and a right hook into the beastie's face. The monster screamed angrily and lunged again, but this time Snow White's foot came up and landed a hard blow to the monster's chest. Natalie tumbled to the ground, but sprang back to her feet, clawing and scratching at the pretty teacher. Miss White blocked each blow with super fast hands until one of Natalie's punches actually connected and sent the teacher painfully to the ground. Instinctively, Charming and Puck stepped forward, ready to take over the fight. But Snow White flashed them an angry look. Gentlemen, please, she said sternly. Charming and Puck threw up their hands in surrender and stepped aside. She sprang to her feet, planted them again, and then eyed the monster with a smile. Come and get it, ugly, she said. School is in session. Natalie roared and leaped at her. Snow White stopped the attack by jumping into the air, spinning around and roundhousing the monster in the face. One of Natalie's fangs broke off in the middle, and the monster fell to the ground, groaning in pain. The teacher stood over her with angry eyes and eager fists. If you were smart, you'd stay down, she said. Sabrina and Daphne looked at each other in amazement. Snow, where did you learn to do all that? Charming asked, obviously stunned by what he had just seen. I teach a self-defense class at the community center, Snow White replied. We're called the Band Apples. We meet every Saturday at 4 p.m. Sign me up, Daphne said. Piper! Natalie shouted angrily as she crawled to her feet. The principal stepped from out of the shadows. He was carrying a set of bagpipes and looking distraught. Do it, the hairy girl raged. This has gone too far, Hamilton cried. Let them save their grandmother and her friends. The barrier will still be broken, and it won't pose a threat to you or your father again. Piper, I'll tell my daddy, Natalie threatened. He's got your precious one, though. The principal raised his bagpipe's reed to his mouth and took a deep breath. That's the end of this video. This video is probably going to be the last one for tonight. So, yeah, goodbye.